Love is in the air, everywhere I look around.
Now listen, Sweet, when are you going to record? Well, as I told you last week...
John Inglis Young, OAM, born 21st June 1950, known professionally as John Paul Young, is an Australian pop singer who is best known for having a worldwide hit with Love is in the Air in 1978. His career was boosted by regular appearances as a performer and guest host on Countdown, a 1974 to 1987 TV series for Australia's national broadcaster ABC. Besides Love is in the Air, Young had top 10 chart success in Germany and the Netherlands, with Standing in the Rain and 4 other top 10 hits in South Africa, including #1 hits with I Hate the Music in 1976 and Yesterday's Hero in 1975. Young was born John Inglis Young in Bridgerton, Glasgow, Scotland, to James and Agnes, née Inglis Young. Together with his parents, 2 sisters and a brother, Young emigrated to Australia on board the SS Canberra, arriving in Sydney on Australia Day, 26th January 1962, when he was aged 11. His family lived at East Hills Hostel before moving to Liverpool. He attended school at Hammondville Public School, Liverpool Boys High School, and Westfield Sports High School. After finishing school, he started an apprenticeship as a sheet metal worker. Initially performing as John Young, his first involvement in music began in late 1967 when he formed a band, Elm Tree, with schoolmates. It was my friends who convinced me that I could be a singer. One weekend I rolled up and they were standing there with 2 bass guitars and an announcement that we were going to form a band. I immediately poo-pooed the whole thing because I'd just started my apprenticeship in sheet metal work, and after paying off a car, no way was I going to be paying off equipment or anything like that, so they said, "You can be the singer because you're always singing and you don't need any equipment." And I fell for it. The other members included Robert Slim Barnett on bass guitar, Ollie Choinaki on guitar, Philip Edwards on drums from 1968 to 1971, and then from 1972 to 1976. Andy Imler on co-lead vocals, Dave Kaintek, Ron Mazurkiewicz on keyboards, and Jeff Watts on drums. Elm Tree gained a moderate following around Sydney, and after being spotted by producer Martin Erdman, they cut 1 single for his Du Monde label, a cover of UK band Marmalade's Rainbow, which was released through Festival in November 1970, but did not enter the top 50 Australian singles charts. In mid-1971, they entered the New South Wales heats of Hoadley's Battle of the Sounds and got as far as the Sydney finals, but they didn't make it through to the national final, and so never managed to break out of the Sydney suburban dance circuit. At this point, Young's manager Dal Miles got him a role in the Melbourne production of the Jesus Christ Revolution. The show opened and closed in 6 weeks. However, due to being seen in this production, Young received a telegram from Jim Sharman who wanted him to audition as Annis for Harry M. Miller's original Australian production of the Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice rock musical Jesus Christ Superstar. The show premiered in Sydney on the 4th of May 1972, and as well as established theatrical performers, the cast featured leading pop rock artists: Trevor White, Robin Ramsey, John English, Doug Parkinson, Stevie Wright, The Easy Beats, Marcia Hines, and Reg Livermore. Young remained with the production until it closed in February 1974. The production broke theatrical attendance records in its 2-year season, and whilst it provided him with a public profile, it left him at a loose end when it concluded. For Young, a major break occurred at an Elm Tree performance when visiting producer and manager, Simon Napier Bell, heard them in a pub in Newcastle in 1971. He persuaded Young to sign as a solo artist to Albert Productions, the company that had produced Australia's top 1960s group, the Easy Beats. Napier Bell then produced Young's first hit single, Pasadena, at Armstrong Studios in Melbourne. It was co-written by George Young and Harry Vanda of the Easy Beats, together with British actor David Hemmings, who was a partner in Napier Bell's label SNB Records. Vanda and Young also produced AC/DC and other Albert Productions artists. All he had to do was sing over the demo tape Vanda/Young had sent from London. The single was released under the name John Young. Later releases used John Paul Young to avoid confusion with Johnny Young, the 1960s pop star and Young Talent Time presenter. He performed the song on Happening 70 on Channel 10. Pasadena peaked at number 16 in the Australian singles charts in early 1972. It was followed by You Drive Me Crazy, which was released in February 1973 but failed to chart. Pasadena had been a hit, but nobody knew what he looked like. Everybody thought the song was American, and basically that was that. It faded away, and the superstar 2.5 years of absolute gold finished. Young renewed his association with Albert Productions, signing with them as a solo artist. Vanda and Young had returned to Australia from the UK in 1973. After his stint in Superstar, they took over as his producers and resumed writing songs for him. Young's third single, It's Only Love, was released in March 1974, but failed to chart in the top 50. The B-side was a track called Bad Trip. Young said no one liked it. It was a disappointment. It was about suicide, but they must have thought it was about drugs because of the title. It wasn't banned or anything, they just didn't play it. Young considered a part in the musical Godspell, but decided against it, preferring to go back to sheet metal work. He left the job after a day and a half due to being hassled by the boss. In February 1975, Young released Yesterday's Hero, a song about the fleeting nature of pop stardom which drew on Vanda and Young's own experiences as former teen idols. The single shot into the national charts in April and gave Young his first top 10 hit, reaching number 8 on the Australian singles chart. The single sold strongly in the United States, where it reached number 44 on the Cashbox Top 100 in February 1976. One of the key factors in the Australian success of Yesterday's Hero was the film clip made to promote it, which enabled the song to be given heavy exposure on Countdown, which had just switched to its new 1-hour Sunday evening format following the official start of colour TV broadcasting on the 1st of March 1975. Young's debut performance on Countdown had him miming Yesterday's Hero while dressed in a sailor's suit surrounded on an island stage with a studio audience of screaming teen girls. He was dragged off the stage 3 times by audience members, and the microphone cord was ripped out, but the song continued uninterrupted. John Paul Young was the first male singer that the show chose to make a megastar. It was an experiment. Could we actually take someone who was basically unknown and in a matter of 2 months turn him into a number 1 hit? By mid-1975, Countdown's talent coordinator, Ian "Molly" Meldrum, had started appearing on screen with a weekly rock report. Young, as guest host, introduced Meldrum's second report, saying, "Here's boring old Molly with boring old humdrum." Molly Meldrum's Humdrum and Countdown continued until 1987, with Young often featured as a performer or guest host named Squeak or JPY by Meldrum. For touring purposes, Young fronted John Paul Young and the All-Stars, with members who had worked with Vanda and Young's former bandmate, Stevie Wright. The All-Stars included Warren Morgan on piano and vocals, who co-wrote songs with Young. Other early members were Kevin Borich on guitar, Johnny Dick on drums, Ronnie Peel on bass guitar, and Ian Winter on guitar. Billy Thorpe reportedly said they were the best rock band in Australia. Throughout 1975, Young toured with Stevie Wright Sherbet and Stylus, with the latter also being his backing band. Young headlined his first concert tour over the Christmas period of 1975 to 76, preferring to use local bands as their support acts. Young's debut studio album, Hero, was released in October 1975 and peaked at number 9 on the Australian album charts. A string of top 10 hits, written and produced by Vanda and Young, followed in Australia, including The Love Game, I Hate the Music and I Wanna Do It With You. Young's second studio album, JPY, was released in August 1976 and also peaked at number 9. In addition to his Australian success, Young achieved top 20 hit singles in Sweden with Yesterday's Hero and I Hate the Music, and in South Africa, where I Hate the Music and Yesterday's Hero were number 1 hits, and Keep On Smilin' and I Wanna Do It With You were top 10 hits. In May 1977, Young released his third studio album, Green, which peaked at number 19. After I recorded Pasadena, our relationship just developed. They play me their songs and say, "See what you think of this." Usually I like it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I pick out something they've written and say I want to do this, like I did with Things to Do. For the JPY album, we worked out some of the songs on the road. Others are worked out in the studio, and some, like Standing in the Rain, are produced by the studio system. Harry and George work it out, and I come in later to do the vocal. In November 1977, Young's first Best Of compilation was released, titled All the Best. It was preceded by the single Where the Action Is, and both the single and album peaked within the Australian top 40. Late in 1977, the European markets began playing Standing in the Rain, the B-side, for the song Keep On Smilin'. The song became a top 10 hit in Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany, selling over 400,000 copies. Young's next single, Love Is in the Air, became a worldwide hit during 1978, peaking at number 3 on the Australian charts in May, number 7 in the US Billboard Hot 100, and number 5 in the UK singles chart. The associated album Love Is in the Air was released in October and reached the top 40 on the Australian albums chart. Subsequent singles, The Day That My Heart Caught Fire, which peaked in the top 20, and Heaven Sent, continued the disco style. Young was crowned King of Pop in October 1978. Love Is in the Air also won Most Popular Australian Single, and Vanda and Young won both Best Australian Record Producer and Best Australian Songwriter at the same awards. Young's fifth studio album, Heaven Sent, was released in November 1979 and peaked at number 95. By mid-1980, Young had left Albert Productions and ended his association with Vanda and Young. Young used session musicians for his 1960s covers album, The Singer, released in August 1981 but failed to reach the top 50. Young turned to a more contemporary electropop sound and adult-oriented style. He signed to the Australian branch of German label IC Records in 1983 and flew to Germany with producer, composer and keyboard player John Capek to start recording a new album with sessions at studios in Hanover, Munich, Los Angeles, Melbourne and Sydney. Most of the material was co-written by Capek and Canadian Mark Jordan. The resulting album, One Foot in Front, was released in March 1984. The lead single, Soldier of Fortune, peaked at number 17 on the national singles chart, while other singles War Games, LA Sunset and Call the Night all failed to chart into the top 50. Soldier of Fortune gained further prominence when it was picked as the theme song for the 1984 Summer Paralympics held in New York City, and also went on to be a hit in Germany. On 25th January 1988, Young performed in the Royal Command, New South Wales Bicentennial Concert in front of the Prince and Princess of Wales at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. Televised across Australia, the event was viewed by over 10 million people and prompted an invitation to appear at World Expo 88 in Brisbane. In late 1988, Young and his family moved to Lake Macquarie near Newcastle. Newcastle's first FM radio station, New FM, was preparing to open in 1989, and Young was asked to head their all-Australian programme, Ozmade Mondays. The programme was successful, with Young moving through the ranks of the station to morning announcer, garnering 4 number-1 rating spots for his breakfast and drive time programmes along the way. A compilation album titled Classic Hits was released in 1988, including the new single Don't Sing That Song, but failed to chart. In 1992, an Australian comedy film titled Strictly Ballroom was released. The film and associated soundtrack featured new versions of Love Is in the Air and Standing in the Rain, both of which were released as singles. Love Is in the Air peaked at number 3 on the Australian singles charts and was a top 50 hit in the UK. In 1994, Young left 105.3 New FM in Newcastle and joined 2CH in Sydney, which only lasted 6 months. On 4th November 1994, Young became a naturalised Australian citizen and received his papers from then Prime Minister Paul Keating. In 1996, Young released his 8th studio album and first since 1984. Titled Now, it is a covers album and includes a re-recording of Love Is in the Air. In 1997, Young made 2 trips to Germany following invitations to perform on a host of national and European television specials and to promote Now. Young returned to Germany in 1998 with the All-Star Band for a month-long tour. On returning to Australia, Young joined the stage production of Leader of the Pack, playing the role of Gus Sharkey. In 2000, he played to his largest audience as a featured performer at the closing ceremony of the 2000 Summer Olympics. Young was recorded on DVD for 3 songs at the Gimme Ted benefit concert held on the 9th of March 2001. From the 8th of August 2001, ABC TV broadcast a 6-part documentary, Long Way to the Top, which chronicled 50 years of rock and roll in Australia. Young featured in episode 4, Berserk Warriors 1973 to 1981. For the associated Long Way to the Top tour in August to September 2002, Young reformed the All-Star Band with Juan Gonzalez on guitar, Warren Morgan on piano, Ronnie Peel on bass guitar, Greg Plimmer on drums, and Michael Walker on synthesizer. From the 12th of October 2003, ABC broadcast Love Is in the Air, a 5-part documentary on Australian pop music with episode 3 Strange Fruit, describing Countdown and how Young was made into a pop star. In 2004, Young became mentor for contestants on the music talent show Pop Stars Live, which was broadcast on 7 Network from February 2004. Young left the show in April. A spokesperson for the producers of Pop Stars Live denied that he had been sacked. In 2005, Young reprised his role as Gus Sharkey in the musical Leader of the Pack. In 2006, Young returned to the studio with Harry Vanda and released In Too Deep in September. Young appeared on the Countdown Spectacular concert series in Australia during June to August in 2006, and on the Countdown Spectacular 2 during August to September in 2007. Young co-hosted the 2007 event with Ian Meldrum. On the 27th of August 2009, Young was inducted into the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame alongside Kev Carmody, The Dingoes, Little Patty, and Mental as Anything. John Paul Young said, "It's an honour to be inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. Now point me to the lounge room, I wonder who's in there." In 2012, Young was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia for service to the performing arts as a singer and songwriter, and through support for a range of charitable organisations. In 2015, Young appeared on the 15th season of Dancing with the Stars. Late in 2015, Young toured a show across Australia based on a complete set of Vanda and Young material. In 2016, Young joined John Stevens, Kate Teberano, and Daryl Braithwaite for the API A Good Times tour. In 2019, Young released his autobiography JPY. In 2022, he released his first new song in 15 years, Felt Like Love, and performed nationally on his anniversary tour, 50 Years Young.
Love is in the air, everywhere I look around. Love is in the air, every sight and every sound. And I don't know if I'm being foolish, don't know if I'm being wise, but it's something that I must believe in. And it's there when I look in your eyes. Love is in the air, in the whisper of the tree. Love is in the air, in the thunder of the sea. And I don't know if I'm just dreaming, don't know if I feel safe, but it's something that I must believe in. And it's there when you call out my name. Love is in the air, love is in the air. Oh, love is in the air, in the rising of the sun. Love is in the air, when the day is nearly done. And I don't know if you're illusion, don't know if I see it true, but you're something that I must believe in. And you're there when I reach out for